On this Thanksgiving, I would like to extend my warmest wishes to all of you. I truly hope you have a wonderful day. We are going to review the weather taking place today, as well as the forecast for the coming days. We will be discussing a major winter storm that is currently affecting the Great Lakes and the Northeast, along with much of the Mid-Atlantic with significant lake effect snowfall. That low-pressure system has moved northward, and we will talk about that. There is another weather system moving into the upper Midwest and Great Lakes that is expected to bring heavy snowfall totals as well. Additionally, we are currently tracking a snowstorm for the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast, which is anticipated around the 2nd or 3rd of December. We will also cover everything that follows, which includes a great deal of cold air and more opportunities for snowfall. We have much to discuss, and it will be a very active weather period. As you may notice, my voice is sounding a bit stronger. We are getting very close to returning to our normal broadcasts as I continue to recover from a rather difficult illness. Now, there are a couple of areas to discuss. We do have some unsettled weather over the northwest, where we are seeing some high elevation snowfall and some low elevation rainfall, which is quite standard for that region. For this time of year, it is actually a relatively quieter day up in the northwest. We are, however, seeing a great deal of snow activity happening around the Great Lakes. Very heavy lake effect snowfall is currently underway. There are also a few passing snow showers across the plains, and even here along the lower Appalachian mountain range. I am seeing some activity in that area as well. Regardless, outside of the lake effect snowfall, it is actually a very pleasant Thanksgiving. It is certainly very, very cold out there. Of course, that lake effect snowfall is highly impactful. So let's take a closer look and discuss that because it is quite impressive. We have been discussing this for a few days, and we can see there are very heavy bands of lake effect snow. I would say the heaviest band right now is the one affecting the upper peninsula of Michigan and the northern tip of the lower peninsula of Michigan. We also have a few heavier areas in Indiana and lower Michigan here. We have some coming off of Lake Erie into parts of Ohio, Pennsylvania, and New York. And then we also have some heavier activity up near the Adirondacks and Watertown, New York. I have a very dear friend named William. He is in the Army, where he flies helicopters, and he lives up in Watertown. So I get to hear all about the weather there. He was my very first friend, my greatest friend, and I appreciate him a great deal. He lives up there, and on a day like today, I suppose I am just feeling thankful. A special hello to William. He is a wonderful person, and we still speak to this day. Let us go ahead and move on to discuss the model guidance now. We will review what is happening later today, and then examine the entire upcoming weather pattern. We will begin with our European model. I am making this video a little earlier than usual today, everyone, as my day is quite full with holiday plans. This is the 0Z run, which is the model forecast from overnight. There will be more model guidance released later today. The 12Z guidance from the European model will be available in about 2 hours from the time I am recording. You will be seeing this video a little while after that, as I typically schedule them for the late afternoon and evening. I schedule them for that time, only because that is when they perform the best, as most everyone is available to watch, so I always aim to post when the largest audience can see it. In any case, we will be sharing a great deal of model guidance within our online weather community. If you join us there, you will receive updated model information. If I am not posting it, there are many people in there sharing every single update to every single model run. It is just remarkable how many of you have joined. We are now well over 600 members, and so many of you are wonderfully active. Please consider joining that community. Looking at the model guidance, we see the lake effect snowfall is expected to continue for most of the day. It is no surprise as the cold air is still moving in. I will note, however, this is for 7 in the evening Eastern Time, so it is quite a bit earlier along the west coast, and we do see that this storm system out west is intensifying as the day progresses. So even though this morning at 11:51 Eastern Time, it did not look too severe in the northwest, conditions out there are expected to worsen. And again, the other major story is simply the continuation of the lake effect snowfall. The snow is already accumulating heavily in some of these areas, and it is just going to keep going. This is incredible weather for Thanksgiving. I know that last year many of you also dealt with lake effect snowfall. So it is year 2 in a row. For tomorrow, on Black Friday, the 28th, we see a lot of this snowfall moving into the Northern Rockies and Northern Plains. The lake effect snowfall is diminishing a little bit, although it is still ongoing. Much of this is also spreading further eastward into the northeast. So you can expect some passing snow showers. Obviously, the farther and farther you get from the lakes, the less likely it is to be a heavy, consistent band of snow. But flakes will be flying in the northeast corner of the nation for the day tomorrow, and it is going to be plenty cold enough. For Saturday, here on the 29th, we can see this next snowstorm we were talking about for the Northern Plains, Midwest, and Great Lakes, and perhaps even some of the Ohio Valley, beginning by Saturday afternoon. As we continue, this will be during the evening hours. This is for 10 o'clock in the evening, Eastern Time. So if you are in a different time zone, you can adjust accordingly. We have the low pressure system here over parts of the Midwest. We have very heavy snowfall in Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, and Michigan, even heading into Ohio. This is going to be a large-scale and quite widespread event. This is a large region seeing snowfall from this system. I believe there is a good chance this will be a significant and impactful storm for the Midwest and Great Lakes. We have been discussing this area, and more particularly this region, seeing heavy snowstorms for several weeks now. This has been the area that I have said is really going to flourish in the upcoming pattern, and we see that prediction coming to fruition with this upcoming snow system. By the afternoon, or perhaps more so the morning of Sunday on the 30th, we see that this system is no longer the strongest low. It is quite difficult to pinpoint. The lowest pressure is somewhere up here. It is not even exceptionally strong by this point, but the intensity of the low does not always mean there will be less severe impacts if it's not a powerful low. The two do not directly correlate like that. So, sometimes you see significant impacts from a very weak low pressure system, and sometimes you see a strong low that is not that impactful. So, you can see some variance there. There is still a lot of snowfall for the Great Lakes and a large part of Canada as well. And we are starting to see some of the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast, especially the interior sections, seeing snowfall from this system. There will even likely be thunderstorm activity across the deep south along this cold front that is stretching down beneath that very, very weak low. As we continue toward the overnight hours, this is 10 o'clock in the evening, Eastern Time on Sunday. We do see that this low moves eastward. We see mostly high-elevation northeastern snowfall left over. Some lake-effect snowfall starts to develop again after this whole thing moves through, because we get that cold wind moving right over the lakes again. So those lakes start to become active once more. I cannot imagine getting all this lake-effect snowfall, then having a major snowstorm on the way, and then more lake-effect snowfall after it. I am truly curious to see what the final snowfall totals will be for you all by the time we are looking at the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd of December, because it is going to be just incredible. We do see that as time goes on, as we reach toward Tuesday morning on the 2nd, we get this next system already setting up. It is a very, very active period for a little while, obviously. The southern jet stream is infusing moisture into all of this. The northern jet is bringing some moisture, but mostly very rich cold air, and all of that is coming together. So we can see a ton of storms, likely thunderstorms again for the deep south, as that is becoming a trend here. Some light snowfall is expected for the Midwest and Ohio Valley, but watch how this progresses as we continue. This system just continues to intensify, with that low developing off the South Carolina coast for Tuesday afternoon on the 2nd. And then we get that low offshore, and it begins to rapidly intensify, down to a 995 millibar system here. Then we end up with some Ohio Valley, Mid-Atlantic and Northeast snowfall getting underway. This is Wednesday at 1 o'clock in the morning on the 3rd, and it drops to a 993. It is in a nearly perfect location there, well to the southeast of Cape Cod, Nantucket, and Martha's Vineyard. We end up with heavy snowfall for a lot of Ohio and West Virginia. It is sort of coming to an end for them, but in the hours before this, it was Pennsylvania seeing heavy snowfall across almost the entire state, New York State, and a lot of New England here. This could be a really significant storm for the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast, and there are still 5 or 6 days to go. So there is time for this to change quite a bit, so please keep that in mind. We are still trying to pin this one down. The most recent trends lately, because this was further to the southeast in yesterday's video, have progressively shown the models pushing this one a little bit further to the northwest. So the question is, will it continue to shift further northwest, or will it stay where it is at, or will it perhaps revert back a little bit further to the southeast? We have to get the fine-tuning of all that figured out, because it could make or break this system for a lot of areas. This is not a sure thing for anybody, so I do not want anyone getting their hopes up too much. But this is a very good sign for the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast. As the days progress, our confidence will increase, depending on what we see from the models. That storm comes to a close later on the 3rd. After that, we are left with some clipper systems moving through that you can see there. These are for the Northern Plains, Midwest, and Great Lakes. We get another, more significant clipper system trying to move through. Then we do get a bit of a warm-up, finally, by the time we are reaching day 11, I believe it is, here on Monday the 8th. It might even be day 12 or so, which is in the long range, so take it with a grain of salt. But this one does finally take us out of the Arctic pattern and into something a little more zonal, with some southeast ridge influence. By the 8th, we will have to see if that is accurate or not. But regardless, it is the 27th today. We have 3 more days of November, if you do not count today, and then this would be 8 days into December. So this is very far out. And if we see cold from now until the 7th, that is a huge cold and snowy pattern that we find ourselves in. We do see a coastal low right here. Again, another signal. I mean, this is far out, but we get another similar coastal system. There is just not as much cold air. So we end up with mostly all rainfall from this one on this particular model run. But that is a signal for a storm, and if the temperatures change, that could look a little bit different. And then, toward the end of the forecast period, which again you must take with a grain of salt, there is still a ton of snowfall for the western mountain ranges. And then also for the north-central states, we get going again with another snow system. And it looks like we are pulling a cold front eastward again. So this would perhaps show signs of us cooling back down in the east again with another Arctic blast. The GFS model is going to agree on multiple fronts. Obviously, the lake effect snowfall is happening. We get this major Midwest, Great Lakes and Ohio Valley storm that moves through. And then we do get this more southern storm developing. As of the 6Z model run, which is the one we are using today, again, I am recording this video much earlier in the day than I typically do. As of that 6Z overnight model run, we do end up seeing this low much closer to the coast. This leads to more rainfall for eastern Pennsylvania, New Jersey, southern New England, and even southern New York, which is seeing some mixing issues with the heaviest snowfall. The heaviest snow is more for the interior of the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic, as you can see. Now, before we move on with this model run, I want to show you, because I do have some of the 12Z model run available. It is not completely finished yet. I only have it out to about 200 hours, but I can see this storm on the 12Z guidance that is more updated. And what we see here is that it is a little bit further southeast, and we see a lot more of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and southern New York, and southern New England getting snowfall there, as opposed to that mixing solution. So again, I will go back and forth here, but this is the 6Z run. This is the 12Z run. You can tell that it obviously shifted a little bit to the southeast. So there is a good possibility that this one is going to trend back and forth. And it is not over for southern New England or eastern Pennsylvania or New Jersey. These are rather typical model fluctuations that you see at days 5 and 6, and we just have to work through it and get through this roller coaster together and try to find a trend in the model guidance to determine what is most likely to happen. So, we are back to the 6 Zulu run, and let's continue with it. That weather system eventually moves out of the region, and we will look at the total snowfall later on. The interesting thing on the 6 Zulu run is that we see another instance right around Friday the 5th. This is still within our 10-day forecast period, where the northern jet stream dips down and the southern jet stream infuses moisture again over the deeper south. You may recall the European model did not show this quite as much, but we do see another snow system developing for the lower Midwest, the lower Ohio Valley, and even Kentucky. It then moves into much of the Mid-Atlantic, including Virginia, West Virginia, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland, and Washington, D.C., and then proceeds up into the northeast as another coastal system. This model suggests that we may not only have to watch for one system along the east coast, but perhaps 2 or even more, because at this point there is not a lot of cold air. This is similar to the European model, where we see another coastal system, but there is not enough cold air to bring any significant snowfall. And I believe the European model showed something very, very similar. And similarly to the European model for now, we actually end up with a warmer pattern for a few days after the 10th. So perhaps that is a trend, or maybe it is just too far out in the models where conditions revert. It is hard to say for certain, but that is what both of them are showing. We must point out any consistencies we find. Here is the total precipitation. We can see quite a bit more in the west than we saw before, and perhaps more in the east as well. So let's just look at the anomalies. And yes, a lot more green is appearing around the nation here than it was yesterday. Still, some of California remains quite dry compared to normal, even significantly dry compared to what is typical, with several inches below average over the next 15 days. But the majority of the country here is either very slightly below average or well above average, as you can see. So a little bit more precipitation for the United States as a whole is showing up in today's model run for the total snowfall on our European model. What we are seeing is a great deal of snow for the mountainous west, a large amount for the plains and the northern Midwest. We see that basically everywhere from the northern plains, the upper Midwest, and the Great Lakes could see multiple feet of snow. And then, even the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast will be affected by that snow system rolling through. We do expect a rather plowable snowfall event for many of these areas, with multiple inches of snowfall anticipated. The GFS model tracks this a little farther to the southeast. Remember, there are 2 snowfall events in the east on this model run, which would result in quite a bit of accumulation here. Something I do want to do is move backward to remove that second snow system. So let's just examine this one right here. This is yours. And I will even do you all a favor and zoom into the east so we can get a better look. But this is through Wednesday the 3rd here on this model. So this is the single snowstorm. And we can see the heaviest totals are inland with this one, in northern New England. You know, it's more in upstate New York and more in northwestern and central Pennsylvania as opposed to the east. So, southern New England and the east coast of the Mid-Atlantic and so forth do not see quite as much. But let's revert it to the 12 Zulu model run, and we can see a lot more of, again, eastern Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and southern New England getting those heaviest totals. Even New York City. So we are going to see some back and forth on this. I cannot tell you with certainty what is going to happen and what is not. We are still beyond that reliable forecast range. However, there is model guidance suggesting that yes, the coast could see some snowfall. There is also some model guidance saying that it will not. It is going to be a back and forth battle, which is how it always is at this forecast range. Again, feel free to join our online community, where we will be posting every model run. There is going to be a great deal of information to go over with this one. and it has become a topic of great interest for everyone lately, with many people following it very closely. So, if you wish to discuss it, there are plenty of folks doing just that in our community. Looking at the temperatures, I will say again that we are cooler for now. We are experiencing cooler weather for early December. The models have trended warmer as we get closer to the 10th of the month. This could just be a minor trend that is going to go away, or it could be a more lasting change. It may be a solid trend that is going to be the case. We are going to have to watch it closely, but we are looking at very cold conditions here for the next few days. And into the weekend, we get a second Arctic blast. Then, there is even a third one here for the first few days of December. It is right around the 8th that we start to see that southeast ridge come into play, and it lasts through the 9th and 10th. We get a little cool down, and then we warm back up again right here for the 11th and 12th. But clearly, a massive Arctic outbreak is right on the doorstep here toward the end of this model run, which, again, is another detail that at hour 360 should be taken with a significant grain of salt. But the bigger picture here is that we are quite cold up until about the 7th or 8th. Then, we begin to see warmer air moving in, but it is not permanent, and these models do trend toward more Arctic air coming in after it. So it should be a temporary warm-up if the models are correct about it. Now, with the GFS model here, we are going to see some fairly good agreement. Cool down number 1, cool down number 2, and cool down number 3 is a little bit more major than on the European model. We even get a fourth cold snap here as we reach the 7th, 8th, and 9th. And then we do warm up on this model as well, with a little less of a sign of Arctic air on the way after it, so that is worth noting as well. The one thing I will say is that for the 27th, well, let's look at what is going to be more critical. Let me get to the end of these ensemble runs. Let me get this one toward the end as well. And what we see is that even for the period of December 2nd through the 12th, so half of this will be for the 8th through the 12th timeframe, we still see warmer air along the west coast, which indicates a positive PNA pattern. And we still see Arctic air on the ensemble models. Now, the ensemble models are 20 to 30 members put together, taking the mean average. So you get more opinions, which for the long range is a great thing. Typically, the ensemble models thrive at the day 5 through 15 timeframe, like what we are looking at right here. This is compared to what we would call the operational models, which are the GFS and the European models. This is the ensemble model. We do see a few signs of the southeast ridge, but nothing extreme. It is mostly just cold air continuing for the 2nd through the 12th of the month. And this is the European ensemble model. Here is the GFS, which is the GFS ensemble model, showing the same thing. There is very good agreement here. We have warmer air along the west, Arctic air still moving into the east, and that southeast ridge is still a little bit present for the very, very deep southeast. What this tells me is that until we see the ensemble models change their minds about the cold air in the long range, I am not ready to sound any alarms. Of course, it is nothing to panic about anyway, but I am not even really buying in to the warmer pattern around the 8th, 10th, or 12th, that kind of time frame, until I see some strong ensemble guidance suggesting that. So I would urge you to do the same. With all of that being said, again, I wish a happy Thanksgiving to all of you. I am thankful for all of you folks, and truly, I am so grateful today. I feel that I am in a wonderful mood, and it is mostly because of your support. I love making these videos. I have been able to do it for so many years, and hopefully I will be able to continue for much longer because I enjoy it so much. I hope you all have a great day. I hope you all enjoy some wonderful food, and I will see you again tomorrow.